Hello beautiful people, welcome back to the channel. So today we are out here a little bit early. It's supposed to get a little on the warmish side, and so I wanted to get out here and get some work done over here along the new section that we had put down this spring. So if you've been here on the channel for a while, we put down a silage tarp along the border of our garden here to help with weed encroachment. But the problem is that we ended up running out of these little stakes right there. And so we've got a little bit of weed encroachment creeping through since we weren't able to tack it down as tightly as we needed to. But obviously we've got our tacks here and I've got my rubber mallet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you along as I pull out these weeds, and what we have here is devilweed. Yeah, I hate devilweed so much. I hate devilweed. But we're going to rip it out as best we can, and then I'm going to go along the edge and tack it down, make it a little bit tighter and a little bit less amiable when it comes to the devilweed being able to creep through the cracks. And then I'll probably we've got a little bit more mulch in bags, of course. And what I'll probably do is I will put a little bit more down in the places where the weed encroachment is a bit heavier. And what that'll do is that'll also put pressure and help to start smothering it out. And then the silage tarp will also be smothering it out too. So it's sort of like a 2-for-1 in that instance. So I'm going to go on ahead. I'm going to put you on hyperlapse because this is going to take a little bit of time and you do not want to stick with me through yanking out all of these weeds. That's going to take a little bit. But we're going to do this before the sun gets any higher and it gets any more humid out, and I will be a very happy gardener once we have this done. And I know the garden will be happy too. Just saying. You just know these things as a gardener. Yeah. I thought you might like to see this. So our purple basil has seeded itself into the mulch, as have a marigold right there, and then another marigold right there. So I'm not going to yank those guys out. They've volunteered, and granted, it's maybe not convenient to leave them where they've landed, but I see no reason to yank them out. They're not hurting anything, and they'll just help with some bug reduction for free during the remaining heavy garden season. Now, I did go on ahead and I left all of the dandelion. So dandelion, if it's popping up in your space, is actually there to correct and amend the soil. That's what it does. So when you go and you spray dandelion or you pull dandelion out, what you are actually doing is encouraging more dandelion to grow, because that dandelion is there to correct a calcium deficiency. So it will just keep inundating the area until there is a sufficient amount of calcium. So I'm just leaving them because they're going to do their job, and then once they've put enough calcium back into the soil, they won't come back in that space. So 9 times out of 10, it's usually better to allow nature to do what it naturally does. Now, that being said, I'm obviously removing devilweed. Now, devilweed, it is a easy grass to grow here, and the reason that it's here is to help with erosion, and I do understand that. That is why it is here. It goes down deep into the ground, doesn't really care what kind of soil it is, and it wraps itself in the soil and locks what soil is remaining in place. However, there are other grasses and things that will help erosion that I would much rather have in my space. So that is why I am a little bit more vigorous in pulling it out. Now, devilweed, if you are permaculture gardening or if you are trying to organic garden, there's really no effective treatment. I hate to be the bearer of bad tidings that way. As far as spray goes, the most effective thing that I have found is actually getting in and hand weeding it, and that seems to weaken it the most. Now, the other thing that you can do to prevent devilweed from coming into a garden space is you can take metal sheeting that is at least a foot wide, and then hammer it down into the ground, because devilweed likes to go down and then it fingers up and goes everywhere. That's just what it does. So having that break so that it can't get through the metal, because it can't puncture through the metal, down deep enough is what prevents it from being able to go down and come up. So you want the metal sheeting to be deep, and then you want to be able to have at least 3 inches above the ground so that you can weed eat right up close along it, because otherwise it'll go over the top and go down into your garden space. So that's also an option if you are looking at doing borders and things of that nature in your garden space. And you can usually find old metal sheeting pretty cheap. You can find it on Facebook, any of your area reach out locations. So we have not done that, obviously. But just pulling it out diligently and getting as much of the root structure out as I possibly can slows it down, and it weakens it enough that over time it's becoming easier and easier and easier to remove. The older areas over here where we've had our garden space and we've had that encroachment for years, at this point we have a lot less devilweed, because I've been weakening it in that area for so long that it isn't as vigorous, I guess you could say. So I've got a few more corners that I need to get into to get some of these weeds out that I've not been as diligent in getting to this year. So I'll put you back on hyperlapse for that, and then I do have a wind spinner that I need to get set into the ground, and then we should be good to go for the day. So So obviously I found a little bit more weed encroachment over there. So got that pulled and then got some extra pins hammered in. Now, it goes without saying that if you have everything that you need when you start on a certain garden project, that you are going to save yourself time and effort down the line. So it probably would have behooved us to make sure that we had enough pins to do the project that we were doing. But under normal circumstances, we are usually able to find these pins very, very easily on a local level. And unfortunately, we weren't able to, and we kept looking for probably about a month trying to find somebody here locally that had these pins for weed fabric. Nobody had them. So we finally had to order them online, and it took like 2 weeks for the pins to get here. So on one hand, it's always better to have everything that you need supply-wise when doing a garden project. On the other hand, sometimes you just have to work with what you have available to you at that time. So I am not saying to, be imprudent when it comes to garden planning and to just get out and garden, although I will tell you to just get out and garden and get started, because sometimes we just need to do that. Sometimes we just have to start in order to do something long term. But I am saying that not everything goes to plan. Okay, when it comes to gardening, sometimes things just don't go as planned. And you need to be okay with that in here. And I guess I could consider this a fail if I wanted to, but I really don't. Because this is just part of the process, and that's really what gardening is it's a process, it's a journey. It's not about an end goal necessarily. You see a lot of people putting up things along those lines, how much they've gotten in produce and all of that, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with measuring that and calculating that and seeing how much you've got. But at the end of the day, if that's your only goal in the garden, I find that people tend to get burnt out a little bit easier. It's almost like they lose their joy in the garden space, and that's not what I want for you. I want you to find it to be a place of joy, a place that you can come to and that ministers to your land and to your soul and to your family and friends as well. So that it's really an integrative process, and that's the way it should be. It's not just about reaping reward. It's about putting things back in and then seeing the results of that in your life and in your garden space. But I'm going to go on ahead and I'm going to close out here. And guys, as always, keep it simple, natural, and essential. We'll see you on the next one. I am going to link here at the end a video showing you one of the very, very early phases of us mulching out this garden. So this would have been around 2018, 2019. So this was a few years ago. So I'm going to go on ahead and I'm going to put that video up here at the end. Also, if you have any questions or comments, drop them down below. I'd love to hear from you. And we have a small space gardening guide available for you guys right now, okay? So if you're interested in learning how to develop a garden space wherever you are, doesn't matter how small it is, we've got a very practical 5-step guide that will allow you to get yourself set up in just 3 days. So I will link that down below in the description, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Bye.